Hi, welcome to True Creeps, where the stories are true and the creeps are real. We'll cover stories from grotesque gore to the possibly plausible paranormal, to horrifying history, to tense and terrible true crime, and everything else that goes bump in the night. We're your hosts, Amanda, and I'm Lindsay, and we want you to join us while we creep. We cover mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, everyone. Today, we are going to talk about our spooky trip, and we are going to share our experiences at our first stop, which was the Elms Hotel.
I'm so fucking excited.
Also today, very exciting, we have our very first guest, and that's Nora. And I put in here, AKA the new HGTV star.
Oh, yeah. She's got her $1 zillion beach house HGTV show coming up.
She can plug her episode here too. But anyways, Nora, will you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Nora. It is an honor, a true honor, to be your first speaker.
You are our first speaker. We can't speak.
And first guest speaker. Let me join into that chaos. Yeah, no, HGTV was hilarious. I'm sorry to share that I do not, in fact, have $1 million lake house where we could all spend our summers.
Lame.
Ugh.
But my 15 minutes of fame were fun.
Perfect.
I loved it. But Nora joined us on our adventure. And because we haven't shared it publicly yet, let's tell everyone where we went. So our first stop was the Elms Hotel, and that's in Excelsior Springs, Missouri. And then we went to the most popular place in the world, Malvern, Iowa.
I mean, it's popular now.
It is. It's on the map now. We made a pit stop at Malvern Manor and got to spend some time there, which I can't wait to talk about. And then our last stop, along with a few of our new ghost hunting friends and Nora, we rented the Villisca Axe Murder House overnight. We intended to stay the entire night. It did not happen. Can't wait to tell you all why.
Yeah. I feel like that one, well, we're going to release them in the order that we traveled to them, but it's also going to take, I think, the most time for us to edit and gather because we try to make sure that we can have some type of audio from then. And there was so much more because we spent so much time doing just ghosty stuff there.
Also, I love how it's like our ghost hunting friends and Nora. Isn't there like a movie where it's like all these characters and then it's like, and
well, they
Ted.
know your name now, okay?
That makes me think of Hamilton and Peggy. And Patty. We forgot Patty, the star, and Church.
We'll add her. That's going to be for that episode proper. That's the surprise.
Oh, yeah.
They're part of our ghost hunting friends.
Yes.
And
Nora, because they know your name now, okay?
I'm telling you, you guys should just make me your official mascot, like your official podcast mascot.
At the end of
And
the True Creeps logo. I would. So the next two stops we will be sharing in upcoming episodes. So that'll be in the next couple weeks that you'll get to hear about those. But today we are focusing on the Elms. Now, before we get into the Elms Hotel, I want to ask you both, had you guys done anything like this before?
So I've been on ghost tours where they walk around and tell you about things. And then there's kind of like an investigation portion where they've had like dowsing rods and like a REM pod and other things, but I wasn't operating them and I wasn't really as involved in like asking questions and like having a say. I was kind of more just like a passenger in it versus being like part of it. So I would say nothing quite like this before.
What about you, Nora?
Yeah, it's the same. I've done the ghost tours and I've been a part of those. And even here, when I went to the Pythian Hotel, they had me be the person holding the rods and I got to like sit on a chair and they were asking questions and then the rods would move. But that's as far as my ghost adventuring goes. I've never actually like gone somewhere where I could just have free range of a place. And yeah.
And for me, I've done this a few times. I've done the Whaley House overnight. It wasn't quite the whole overnight, but it was several hours of free reign. I've done the Hotel San Carlos in Arizona. I've done Queen Mary, and then the Old County Jail, I want to say, in Globe, Arizona. So we did an overnight there too. That was a lot of fun. So watching everyone react to all this stuff was a treat.
It was also nice to be like a smaller group. Because normally I feel like in a ghost tour, you're like, you have, sometimes I've had where it's like just the group that I'm with, but then it's been like times that it's like 50 people and you never quite know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So I liked that it was what we were experienced, and part for the Elm was a small little group situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. So when I first got there, I thought the Elms was way prettier than I expected it to be. Like, the pictures just don't do it justice. And if you do visit, we recommend that you spend some time exploring the grounds during the day too, just because there's so much to see. And unfortunately, I didn't have enough time because I had some flight cancellations and delays. So I got there last, but the girls got there first. So thinking of that, what were your guys' first impression of the Elms?
Well, when we first got there, the neighborhood around it is very different than the hotel. So we're driving up and it's just kind of like a very stark contrast. So I was kind of like, like, I wonder how this will be, because a lot of like the homes in the area were a bit older and there were lots of businesses that were closed down around it. And then they're like, the hotel is just like this like beautiful, gorgeous, older looking place. And when we walked in, I honestly did my best to just kind of have blinders on because I didn't want to experience anything without you. And Amanda very much downplayed just how bad her airport experience was. She got to the airport at like 4:15 in the morning. And then they like pushed her flight. Then they canceled it. Then that got pushed. Then she got another flight. Then that got pushed. Then it got pushed again. Then she moved on to a different flight. Then she almost missed her connecting flight. It was a fucking nightmare. She spent, how many hours did you spend traveling, Amanda?
If you count just time in the airport, I think about 11 hours total.
Okay. And then flying?
That included everything, the flights, airport time.
Okay. Versus like, it was supposed to be like a 6-hour endeavor before that.
Not even.
Like
3 or 4. Yeah. 'Cause it's only a 2-hour flight.
Yeah. She went fucking through it.
But I fucking made it. I made it.
She did.
And
Barely.
she still showed up
Barely.
with a smile.
Like, I kept joking that if I would have gone through that much, I would have been like, have a good time, guys. I'll see you when I see you.
I'll just live here.
I was so excited to see you guys. Nora, what was your first impression of the hotel?
The same. I mean, as we're driving through it, it kind of felt very like Beauty and the Beast. Like, it's like dark. And then it's like you pull up and then it's like, wham, this like massive hotel in front of you. And it's beautiful on the outside. And then you walk in and I mean, it looked pretty modern to me. I don't know about you, Lindsay, but it looked pretty modern. They kept it very, very neat and it didn't look scary. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, it didn't look like it was scary because they had done such a good job at like making it look so nice and elegant.
Right. They've kept up on it well.
Yeah. And I would say like, it doesn't have an ominous feeling, but you're right when it comes to even just like the size of it, because it's a tall hotel and there's no other tall buildings around it. It's just like this massive structure surrounded by smaller, different types of buildings. So it does kind of stand out in that way too. Yeah, that makes sense.
Something that I really found fascinating is when we entered the lobby, how we were told later on that every individual tile was hand laid. And there's so many tiles, but it's gorgeous.
I did like them.
Yeah, the original flooring was gorgeous.
Right. So we made it the whole night. We stayed at the Elms Hotel. The three of us stayed on the 4th floor in room 418. And just a quick note, nothing spooky really happened in our room that I felt. I felt like it was just a regular hotel room, like in a good way. It was a nice room, but nothing spooky.
So after we picked up Amanda from the airport, we got back. She got a shower. That was an experience for her, but eventually fine. And then we got ready. We were like, okay, we're going to go to the ghost tour. We're like, we've got so much time. Somehow it's 8 p.m. I don't know where time went because we got her at 4:30. I don't know where all that time went, but we were just dilly-dallying. And so we went and had dinner at the Three Owls restaurant, which is inside the hotel. And it's just beautiful. I think we probably have several chandelier photos of it because we just took so many chandelier photos.
Oh, yeah.
But it was really lovely. And we had dinner there. And then we went on a ghost tour. We're happy to report that the guide that we talked about in our episode on the Elms is the person who's still hosting the tour, and he does a great job. I liked that he gave a little bit of background about how the tour started and that like it started with him being a person who worked there, who noticed these things, and he kind of became like the shepherd for these stories. And then anytime they wanted to give someone like a tour of the hotel and the spooky stuff, they would just call him and he would just do it impromptu. And then they made a tour of it. And I really like that evolution, that it was like, it's always his. It will always be his, you know?
Right. His passion.
Oh, yeah. And his name's Jay, by the way. A treasure, a delight. In his tour, he mixes history, personal experiences, along with things that have happened for the guests, as well as some aptly named pauses. He also has a really nice book that he has at the front desk where people can write their experiences with the hotel generally or on his ghost tour. And it's nearly full. There's hundreds of people's signatures. And what I really love is that one of the things he said, he's like, one day I'll show this to my grandkids. So it's like so clearly just like the thing that makes his heart sing, which, So if you're in that area, driving by that area, staying at the Elms, you should definitely go to the tour. It's lovely. It's 9 p.m. each night. And if you do, tell Jay that we sent you. We heard stories that we had already covered in our episode on the Elms, but also some new ones. We're not going to tell you the rest of them though, because we want you to be surprised when you visit. But it was very good. It was like packed full of stories. I have a feeling that each tour ends up being different because he has so much to tell you, and it could only be so long.
And depending on where people are staying in the hotel too, because he did call out some rooms, but he was very careful on which rooms he called out.
I love how he did that.
Yeah, I thought it was very respectful and kind to not try to like scare the hell out of people if they didn't want to be.
Right, right.
I do remember him saying, like, is anybody staying in this room? And then if nobody said yes, he'd be like, let me tell you what happened there.
I love it. I fucking love it. I love a little hot goss, you know, and that's kind of how it felt. But he was doing it outside of the room. So like, if you were in the room, you're like, I'm sorry, what happened in here? But I think that for the most part, like a lot of the things that they talked about, I don't think were too terrifying. It was just like a very real account of somebody experiencing something that is not typical, I would say.
Agreed.
It's like not a situation where like, and then I woke up covered in blood. Like it wasn't that kind of stuff.
You're right.
Yeah. He was just like, a couple people have had scratches here and there.
Yeah. Look, what is a couple ghost scratches among friends? Yeah. I mean, after Feliska, I think a few ghost scratches is fine.
I mean, on the big spectrum, really.
Oh, right.
After Feliska, I'll take a ghost.
Yeah, that sounds delightful, honestly. So let's get into what we experienced at the Elms ourselves. So Amanda, if you don't know this, she has an amazing ability to talk to people and have them just be like their kindest versions of themselves back. So she's like, oh, we have a podcast. We wanted to do an investigation. They were like, sounds great. We'll let you like walk around and be in places. Didn't even occur to me to do that. I was like, I guess we'll be in the lobby. Meanwhile, Amanda's like, I figured it out. I got it. I mean, her voice doesn't sound like that. That's how I talk, but you get the gist. So we got to go into a few different places that we had visited in the ghost tour itself, but afterwards. So it was just us in there. And then at different points, we also had employees in there with us too. So during the ghost tour, we had stopped in one of the ballrooms, which we'll call Ballroom 1. It's also what they call their grand ballroom. And we were told a story about how during an event, a child looked at this closet area that's in the far back right of the room. And when he did that, he said, do you have a name for the man in the closet? If not, maybe you should call him Ace. I mean, if a child tells you a ghost's name, I guess you have to listen. Like that feels just like a silly thing. And also like, why not? Why not let him name the ghost? That was my Baltimore accent.
The ghost has been baptized.
Yeah. So from that point on, they called the spirit Ace. And the closet that we're talking about, the door to it has a magnetic latch. So it should stay shut. Like it's a door that should close and then be closed. And yet it does not stay closed most of the time. Also, in this same room, Jay mentioned that he had been walking through one night, and I believe it was a time when he wasn't alone in the room, and a woman walked by who was dressed like waitstaff and had blonde hair, and he had turned because he wanted to talk to her because she caught his eye. So when he went to turn to talk to her, and then she was just gone. So like not only was it like, oh, I saw this person, but it was enough where like it really caught his attention because he was like, hello, you know, versus just like, oh, I saw something out of the corner of my eye versus like, no, I actively registered this person as attractive, which I thought was interesting.
Creepy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so because there had been multiple things that had happened there, this was the first place where we set up after our original ghost tour. And when I say like grand ballroom, it's not a massive space, but it is like big enough for like a reception.
Yeah.
That's not huge. It's just like a big room that's beautiful. And so, Amanda, what were your initial thoughts when you entered the ballroom when we came back the second time and when we went in the first time?
The first time, I think it's just because we had so many people. I was just kind of in the back waiting for everyone to filter out so I could get some pictures, not knowing that we'd be able to go back in there. It just felt a little weird around maybe that closet because it was so dark over there. Like it was a dark ballroom, but then like over there was an extra piece of dark. I don't understand how to describe it, I guess.
Yes.
And then also the windows are kind of covered by like curtains, but you can see through them. So you could see when people were walking. And I kept drawing my attention over there, even when people were not walking, which was interesting. And especially when we went back at night, that's where my focus kept going, is where the windows are, thinking someone was walking. And then, of course, when I walked near the closet, I'll talk about it in a few minutes. That was a little weird. What about you, Nora?
Yeah, it's true. When we went in there with a ton of people, there was nothing scary about it. However, I will say that closet, you're right, it is a different level of dark. And every time I kept looking back at it, I just kept waiting. Like it was like I was just waiting for it. I was waiting to see something. I was waiting to see red eyes. I was waiting for it all. And when we went back the second time, when it was just us, I was sitting, my back was facing the wall, and I was sitting in a way where if I was focusing on my left, I could see the closet door. If I was focusing on my right, I could see all of the windows to the ballroom covered in that like sheer curtain. And I kept looking like at a corner of a window because I kept feeling like I kept seeing somebody like pass or go through it. So I kept looking, and I would keep turning, or you know that feeling when you're like something's there and you would go and you would look. So that's what
or someone's gonna walk in.
Yeah, or like just like keep walking by, and I'm just waiting to like see the person walk by or whatever going to their room. But no, there was never anybody there. And obviously later, yes, like there was like crowd of people that like passed by, but the ballroom itself wasn't as eerie as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. What about you, Lindsay?
So and also just backing up a little bit to describe the layout of this ballroom. So I want you to think a long rectangle. There's kind of glass windows and doors intermittently. And then at the top of the squared rectangle, that's where the closet we're talking about is. So it's up in that, like, it's kind of like the corner from if your back's to the glass window on the flat side. Mm-hmm. So if that's helpful, it's a strange kind of layout to describe, but I think it's worth mentioning that there's a lot of glass. So it's not too strange to think that you're going to see somebody walk by. So not surprising that somebody could look in. When we first came in with the group, I was just kind of like, oh, this is beautiful. But my eye was drawn to the corner at the top of the room that Nora was mentioning a minute ago and that Amanda mentioned. And I had the distinct feeling of being watched, like something was looking back at me. Mm-hmm. So like during our spirit box and EMF session after like we set up, the entire time I'm just kind of like fixated on this like very dark closet because I just have the distinct feeling of being watched. And Amanda and Nora are both like, I feel like I see something on this other side of this room. And then as we kind of like get into what we're doing, I still have this feeling of being watched over there. But like from the left side, from where Nora was talking about, I saw like the silhouette of a woman in the window for like a very long time. And there was no woman there. And like for a solid quarter of the time we were in the room, it was there because I was our scribe throughout it because it was how I stayed present. So in my notes, I was like, I see a little thing in the corner of the room. Amanda tried to like decipher some of my notes and I was like, I know it exists in here. So if you hear pages moving, that's my $9.99 moleskin that I got from TJ Maxx that I'm fucking hyped about.
Proud of.
Look, moleskins are like $30 sometimes. So a $9.99 one, beautiful.
What a deal.
But it was like it didn't feel ominous in the room. It was just like I felt like I was being looked at.
Yeah,
which I don't like. And when we get to our discussion on Malvern Manor, we'll talk about situations where you could be in darkness and there's something darker. That's what that closet felt like to me. Like it felt darker than, it felt pitch black when it shouldn't have been pitch black because there was light around.
Right. And I will say it didn't feel like, I'm trying to choose my words carefully. It didn't feel threatening or anything, whatever was in there. It was more like, someone watching you and uneasy rather than like
Curious.
Scary, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Interesting.
So when we did go into that room though, we brought a lot of ghost hunting supplies. And we set up 2 EMF readers on different tables. And I'm going to talk about what each of these do as well. We brought some light up cat balls, a laser grid, and we faced it towards the closet. And then an S-box ghost box, which is essentially a spirit box. And we have tons of pictures and videos as well. And we'll be sharing some of them on our social media. So just a quick rundown of what each device does. An EMF reader detects changes in the electromagnetic field. And we made sure that the EMF readers weren't near our electronics. So if we had it go off, if it was next to one of our phones or something like that, obviously our phone was doing it. But we tried to keep them like freely on tables away from other electronics. We brought cat balls, which are little plastic cat balls, right? Like little toys, and they light up when they're moved. So it's really easy to see from across the room if something touched it or maybe walked really close to it because it'll light up. The other one we brought was a laser grid, and that emits a grid of little green dots onto a wall. And so with it, you can make out if there's like a shadow or any sort of movement in that area because you'll see it distorted.
Amanda was trying to explain this to me before we went as to like what it was. And I was like, what? Basically, think like a flashlight. And rather than what comes out being just like a big beam of light, it's lots of little green dots. I could not conceptualize what you were explaining to me before this. And I was like, oh, it's a little green dot flashlight. Heard.
Yeah. Technical name. I brought a whole duffel bag of ghost hunting supplies that I had to bring with me on the plane. And I was sure I was going to get stuck by TSA. Like, what the hell are you doing? But they seemed like they were fine with it.
They were cool with batteries. Like I brought 4 flashlights, one of which was massive. Her name was Big Mama. She's the star of Villisca, partially. And just like little flashlights and a voice recorder and more cat balls. Amanda was like outfitted. She was like ready.
Oh yeah.
In her tactical
She was elbows deep in like ghost equipment.
Yeah, she was like, I'm fucking ready. She had a fucking jumpsuit with like little holsters on it. Like
I've been waiting my whole life for this.
Next
like,
time I
she
think that's
didn't,
what we need.
but like, don't fucking tempt me to have that. Like
with our code names on the back.
I almost just expected her to have a little utility belt.
Yeah. I
We
fucking
needed
love it.
something like
The company that we do our merch through, one of the things they added was a crossbody bag. And I immediately sent it to Amanda and I was like, are we making ghost hunting bags? So I was like, fuck
Yeah, like we needed stuff all the time.
yeah. And especially like depending on where we were, you needed different things.
Yeah.
At the Elms, we didn't really need a lot of flashlights and things like that. But in other places, that was really helpful.
Yeah.
So it was just an interesting kind of, I don't know. All that to say, Amanda's the MVP when it comes to ghost hunting tools.
Well, the last one that we used was it's called the S-Box Ghost Box, and it's from Ghost Stop. I'll plug that here. Pick us up, Ghost Stop. We would love to work with you. It sweeps through FM and AM stations very quick, and if it detects something attempting to come through, it'll stop for a quick second on that frequency. And Lindsay kept calling it Bumblebee. Like that's kind of how it talks. However, sometimes, and this happened several times throughout our adventures, it'll get a voice that sounds like it's someone in the room talking. Like it doesn't sound like someone from the radio. It sounds like someone is there.
And it's distinct. Like there are times when you are listening when you're like, wait, did it say this? And everybody kind of has a different point of view. But then there are times when everyone in the room hears the same exact thing and you can tell the difference because like there's like, oh, what it sounds like when your radio scanner is going and it's like, oop, oop, up, oop, oop, versus like, hi. Like that sounds very different.
Yes. So during our time in this ballroom, we did get several EMF spikes. And it seemed to be when we were talking about some of the ghost stories that all of a sudden it would spike. I went and shut the closet door, the one that had like that latch that we've been talking about. And I will say it did remain shut the entire rest of the night. Like we checked on it several times and it was still shut. But when I went to go shut the door, it did feel really creepy when I had to walk over to it alone.
I had no desire to even go into that fucking corner.
Nope.
I also have like a big fear of closets. So like there was fucking no way that I was going to be like, let's go into the closet, even though it was like relatively safe.
Right. It wasn't even pitch black because we still had like the light that was flooding in from the outside of the ballroom. But yeah, no, could not be me. I was like, yeah, no, Amanda, you could do that.
I'm just like, okay, and walked right over.
I'll wait here.
So several times while we were in that ballroom where Lindsay described all that glass, we thought we saw people walking by, and several times all three of us would like turn our head to see like who's walking by, who's coming, and no one would be there, but all three of us would like turn our head at the same time to see. There was kind of like a party at the hotel. I don't know what it was, but it was a big group of people that were walking around together, so we kept thinking it was going to be them, and then no one would be there. So that was a little unsettling. Also in this room, we did have a few spirit box responses that we wanted to play, and just because I always question when people have any sort of evidence of anything, I want to say what I did with this audio. The box is very loud. Like the is very, very loud. And so what I did is I reduced the sound of that, cut out some of the dead air between us asking questions and responses, and then I amplified the responses so that we could hear it better. So it's a little bit changed, but we're happy to put the original audio out there too if anyone wants it.
Also, just another note before we get into that part. This is the first time Amanda and I have ever been recording in a location. We were so hyped to be doing what we were doing that that's what our number one goal was to have an awesome experience. So the recording quality is not like podcast level because we weren't there to do a podcast. We were there to experience things, and we're like, oh yeah, we want to talk about this. How are we going to do that? So in the future, we'll figure it out a better way. But for now, if we sound strange, it's because this is cell phone audio in a video.
Yeah. So I'm going to play the first one for everyone so we can discuss what we think we heard. So this is me asking how many people are in the ballroom.
How many people are in this ballroom?
So I think this one, we all agreed, right, that it said 8.
I heard it say 8.
It definitely said 8.
Right. And it's interesting because it could say anything, right? It's using radio frequencies. And sometimes when you ask a specific question and it responds in a way that makes sense, you lean towards, okay, maybe there is a true response.
And when you ask a question, right, and before you ask a question, when it's on, it's like scanning through. There's lots of sound. So there's random sound and then not random sound. Mm-hmm. So it's like if it was just quiet and then every once in a while just made a random sound, I think that would be one thing. But the fact that it's continuous and then suddenly coherent speech comes out.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and it's not like it ever mentioned any other numbers either. Like, it's not like when it was going through the FM, we were hearing like 3, 7, 10, like nothing. It was nothing like that. But as soon as the question was asked, you could very clearly hear 8.
Yes.
So shortly after we asked again, we're like, did you say 8? And it had a little bit of a different response this time. But again, if there are multiple people going in and out of this ballroom, perhaps it changed.
Did you say 8? 6? I heard 6. Oh, yeah.
What's interesting is in this time, I can hear in this single kind of like real sound, yes or 6. I think it could be either, which I don't know.
It's up to interpretation sometimes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I heard 6. 2 ghosties were like, peace.
They left out that window.
They left us with 6.
We're going to go watch you from the hallway. Bye.
Good luck.
So, and then one other one that we got that I thought was interesting is us asking if there's someone near the closet. And there's a few responses for this one.
Is there someone near that closet to the right of me?
That one's a little hard for me. I couldn't really make out what it said.
This one wasn't as clear.
Yeah.
For that one, it sounded like it said, there is. And then like a different voice said, there are. And then like 2 different like distinct sounds of music being played, which again, it doesn't often sound like that. So when you hear like music playing, interesting. And then I thought I heard someone say Rose, but like that is part of it is my mind like trying to like make sense of things. But if there are 6 to 8 ghosts in the room, it makes sense that we would have more than one response, especially if like everyone's hanging out by the closet. Like maybe that's the fucking hit place to be if you're a ghost at the Elms on a Thursday night.
Right. But either way, it was a little unsettling at times. We felt like someone was watching us. And while we were in there too, occasionally we did have one of the employees with us, and we're going to talk about her in just a minute. So it was 3 to 4 of us at a time inside the ballroom.
So the next place that we went was the tavern. And this was the place that we think had the most activity that evening. Also, just interesting to note, we, for the first time, went into the tavern at this point. We didn't go there as part of the ghost tour, and it was closed after, like, when we had come down to go to dinner. Like, I didn't even know it was, like, over there because it was just locked up, so you couldn't really see it. And when we went in, it was completely dark and closed. But just as an interesting note, I ran to the bathroom because I pee every 15 seconds. So Amanda and Nora went in first, and then I came in after them. I think that's just like an important thing to note because we're going to talk about Amanda and I having the same impression, but it's me saying it second, and I didn't know Amanda had said that. So just very interesting.
Yeah.
So Amanda, what was your first impression when you went in there?
So it was evening, right? It's late. So it was a little cold in there, but the air felt weirdly thick. Like it was hard to take a deep breath. And normally when you're around cold air, it's pretty easy. Like it's thin air, but this felt heavy.
I hear you. What about you, Nora?
It almost felt like kind of like when you go into a sauna and it's really thick.
Like humid?
Like high humidity. Yeah, high humidity. And you go in and there's just like this thickness in the air and you're like, oh, it's a little hard to take a deep breath there because it's so thick. And that room, again, it is cold. It was cold when we were in there, but not like I need a sweater cold. Like you could just feel that it was cold mixed with the humidity. And yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting because it definitely had a different feel than the other one.
Right. Just like outside the door, it was completely different than right when you enter the door of the tavern. And then we'll talk about it too. Once you go past the bar area, there's a place that caught both of our attention as well.
Yes. So at this point in my life, when we were at the Elms, as an adult, the way that I had experienced like ghosty activity for the most part was I would have this feeling of like, you know how when you've eaten too much and you're full, but like in my soul, like I felt it kind of like in my gut, like I felt like more than me. And I don't know how to describe it other than that, but like it goes along with that like same heaviness feeling. Like it just feels like there's more there. The energy is perhaps thicker. I don't know what it's called. I don't know how to explain it, but just that's how it felt. So when we were walking in, so like part of like my notation and my scribe duties was I would ask everyone like, hey, like, what are you feeling when you get in there? And I started doing it when we were in the tavern. That was the first time that I was like, hey, Nora, hey, Amanda, how do you guys feel? So when I came in, Amanda was setting up her ghost tools. So she had the laser grid already up. The cat balls were being set around. She was getting the spirit box out. And then she was placing EMF readers. And when I was walking around, like I did like it's a smallish room. It's not like a massive space. So I walked from like the front to the back because it's just kind of like a long room. And as Amanda mentioned, when you pass the bar, there's like a bookshelf on the left and then there's windows on the right. And I want to think there's 2 or 3 tables on the left side near the bookshelf. And I like walked past the first one, felt like the same ghosty heaviness. But then when I got to the second one, there was a distinct change like near that table. It just felt different. I felt like drawn to it. Shrug, perhaps. Like I just felt like there was more there than there was everywhere else in the room. And so I was kind of quiet about it because I was like, how do you say, like, it feels like maybe there's more ghosts at this table. And because like this is the first time Amanda and I had done anything like this together in person, where versus like us just being part of a ghost tour. And love you, Nora. Nora and I bonded very quickly while Amanda was at the airport. But, you know,
the best part of the trip, you know, living at the
I'm sorry, Amanda. I'm sorry. We did trauma dumping very quick at Applebee's. We bonded. We had to like get on some level of like familiarity. Otherwise, it's just another stranger.
We got to get it all out.
Well,
there.
And this wasn't the first time that everyone has met.
Yes. I had met Nora when I was in Arizona visiting Amanda and we had hung out. And so.
And I still lived there.
Yeah. Back. Look, you sound sad about not living in Arizona. Amanda's sad about living there. You guys should just swap. Done. Easy peasy.
I mean, Missouri
Done.
might not be
Fixed.
for me either, though. I'm a little too picky. I don't want to live anywhere.
I think you're correct. But okay. So we're at the second table. It feels weird. I go set up at the bar with my notepad and I'm like, it's time to write. It was 11:30 p.m. by the way, because I wrote it. And Amanda, can you hear Moo snoring? It's that time of the episode for me to tell you that Moo's snoring and she's part of True Creeps. But she like went to sit the AMF reader down at the first table and I was like, oh, what if you put it on the second table? Because I got a weird feeling. And then that's when her and Nora were like, Amanda also felt this feeling. And I was like, huh, how funny that like independently we both were like, something's up.
Yeah, not just the same space or like in the same little area. Like you guys both pointed like directly to the part of the bookcase that like went right across. It's kind of like a train caboose almost. Like that's kind of like what that room reminded me of.
I could see that.
So it's like long and narrow. So you're walking down and it's like you have to walk through it like.
Was it curved?
Yeah, it was. It did have a little curve to it, right?
This picture's a fucking vibe.
Yeah, I love it. It's like we're at a rave.
I know.
If we really did have ghosties passing through, then it would have really felt like a rave because it catches movement and then the lights would have like flickered.
Oh, yeah. And every time I would walk through it, Lindsay would be like, did it move?
I'm fucking attuned, guys. I'm fucking looking. Every video I look at, I'm like, Amanda, is this a camera or a ghost? I don't know. And she's like, it's a camera. It's light. And I'm like, fair. But I'm going to ask every time because I would rather be like, y'all seeing this? Than say nothing. Because like,
yeah, that's fair.
The point is to be like, are there ghosties? Are there not? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so as we had mentioned a moment ago, the tools we had the EMF readers, a laser grid, cat balls, and then the little spirit box guy. So when we were there, one of the first things we heard through the spirit box was a woman who sounded like she was in distress. And typically, like the first question we would ask would be something like, is there someone here with us? If so, how many? Things like that. If we got a clear sense of like, if it was like a man or a woman in the room based on the sound that came from the spirit box, we might ask a more pointed question. But so we said, is there someone here with us? And we heard a sound that sounded like a woman in distress. And so from my recollection, I don't remember hearing like exact words, but just that it sounded like a woman who was in distress. Do we all agree that that was the vibe?
Yeah, and we'll play it here.
So we could say, is anyone in here with us? Please feel free to speak through the spirit box. You hear that? That sounded like a woman, yeah? Like a weeping woman.
Oh, hearing it again is just like, because it reminds me of what we heard while we were there. And all of us immediately were like, what was that?
Right, because it came up twice, at least twice, and it was the same voice. So again, if it's fluctuating between radio signals, the same one will not come up that quick.
Well, and even if you're thinking like fluctuating between radio signals, it's going to not be like 10 seconds of a person's voice, right? Or 4 seconds, or even like 2 seconds. It's going so fast that it wouldn't have more than just like a from one person. So like strange. So we heard this. Then we asked, are you crying?
Are you crying? What I just heard was, and in like different. But it doesn't sound like that was from the radio, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't that sound different? Yeah. That's how it works.
So I don't know if you, dear listener, hear the same thing that we did, but we very distinctly heard, ugh, ugh, ugh. And what I found fascinating was that it was like 3 different voices going, It didn't, that one for me didn't sound like as clear as one person. I just did hear a very clear, like 3 ughs. I've never said ugh so many times in my life.
Right.
One more time, please, for the fans.
So we also heard a few more things and we'll tell you what we think we heard. But, you know, as always, we're open to other opinions. Like if you hear this and you're like, I don't hear any of this. Cool. Tell us. You don't have to be a dick about it, but feel free to give us a different opinion. Cause like it's completely possible that you'll hear something that maybe we don't, right? Maybe there's something we're missing.
Yeah. One of the other ones too, this is me repeating what I thought I heard, so I'll play that one.
Friend? Did you just say friend?
Probably.
I heard probably yes.
So what's interesting with that is, so we hear it say friend, you say, did you say friend? And you don't even have the statement out before I hear it say friend. And then after you said it, it said friend again. And then you said, did you say friend? And then you said something else and it was like, probably.
Yeah, I feel like that was pretty clear.
So like I heard friend many times.
I feel like the ghost was like, chill, let me answer.
Yeah, it was like, just let me talk, please.
Let me get my words out.
Got things to fucking say.
And then there is one other one too, where we asked, who doesn't like the door closed? We were referring to the ballroom closet door. And Lindsay thought she heard a particular answer.
Who doesn't like to have the door closed in the ballroom?
What's interesting is now I hear like steps. Like I don't hear stab.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting when it's very loud in front of you too, because it kind of changes.
Oh yeah, like it is overwhelming. The sound of it.
Yeah, it definitely messes with your senses because it's trying to decipher something.
Yeah,
And it kind of messes with you a little bit.
it does. It does.
One of the hotel employees that was, I would say, present for a good bit of our little ghost situation. Her name was Jess, a treasure and a fucking delight. Like
I loved
she
her.
was so sweet, so kind, and so like generous. I would say, like with sharing information about herself and like her experiences, because it's kind of a hard thing to do. I feel like I know I felt uncomfortable being like, guys, I feel more ghosts at the table. And she was like, let me tell you about some weird shit. And I loved that for her. And like, there's like vulnerable stories, things she told us, but like, chef's kiss. Love Jess.
You could tell too, she had such a passion. She had such a passion for working there and she just loved being there.
Yes.
That just like radiated off of her.
Yes, I loved hanging out with her.
Yes. And one of the things that I really did like about her was that we mentioned, right? Like the Elms is beautiful. It's just fucking stunning. And it stands out. It's just like this like little sparkly bit in the area, right? And Jess talked about how like for years, like she wanted to work there. And like when she finally did, it was like, yes. Like she was like so fucking excited. And you don't often hear people be like, hell yeah, like I got the thing I wanted. And like being able to be like excited enough to be present in that joy, a love letter to Jess. There
Such
we go.
a positive person. Yes, I loved being around her.
Yes, wonderful. So she was in the tavern with us, and she said that some of the voices that were coming through the spirit box sounded familiar. And here's where we're going to remind you for the 7,000th time that shouldn't happen. If you're thinking like logically with how sound works, right? If it was just playing random nonsense, you wouldn't hear someone's voice.
Yeah.
Like what sounded like someone's voice. And so she said that one of the voices that was coming through sounded like a person named Billy, who was a coworker who had suddenly passed away. And she also suspected that perhaps her brother may have come through at one point. For this and for everything that we experienced over our short trip that felt very long, not every second was documented because that wasn't the purpose. It was for us to like be present. But I thought that one of the things that was very interesting about when she was talking to the spirit box, when she thought that she heard her brother, was that the responses that we all heard were very subjective. We were hearing different things, which is not unusual, right? That we might hear different things. But I very, very vividly remember that at one point she was talking to it and I heard, I love you, like clear as day. Like I heard it clear as day. And her brother's name was Eric. And at one point she said, Eric, are you here? And she says, if you're here, say something only I would know. And it's at that point that she's like, it didn't say anything, but the voice that she heard sounded like him to her, right? And if you're thinking about somebody who you know, and you're thinking about like the cadence of the way they talk or things like that, like that's a unique thing. A few times through the spirit box, it said hi, but I heard it say I love you at one point. And I don't think I said it out loud because I was like, it was a very personal moment. And I was like, I don't want to like, I don't know. It felt like I was intruding.
The message was for her.
Yeah, like it was for her. And that was like, I just felt like that was very sweet.
Yeah, for her brother's stuff, we were moving, or at least I was moving stuff around a little bit. And so I had stopped recording to step away. And then that's when she's like, I feel like I just heard my brother. And I was more like in awe of like watching her potentially be talking to her brother.
Yeah, yeah.
But we do have a few clips of the possible coworker, Billy.
Yeah. And I also would point out that like in a moment like that, typically what we're going to be focused on is like that experience rather than recording it, with the exception of at a later date when Nora was crying and I tastefully put a camera underneath of her, but didn't take a photo. So sorry, Nora.
Very Blair Witch of us. I can't wait to talk about that. That was so bizarre for me.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, like I said, we had a few interactions with potentially Billy, so I'll play some of those now. Okay, so the first one, Jess had showed us a picture of what Billy looked like. So we asked if that was him.
Billy, is this you? We're looking at a picture.
I heard Target.
I heard Target. Yeah, like Target, that's it. Yes, that's it. I guess that's a picture, I assumed.
Oh, interesting. I just heard Target, but I don't know if I like was like, that's what it means.
When we all hear the same word, I feel justified. Like, yes, that's what it said.
Yeah, like a 3 out of 3. We voted.
Yeah.
The council said yes. The word Target was said.
Okay, there is one other one from Billy, and I hear a specific thing, but this is Billy's message to his coworkers.
If it is Billy, do you have any messages for any of your coworkers?
Now, I heard so long. What do you guys hear?
When I heard it there, yes, I heard so long. Like it was almost like a so long. How sweet.
So interesting. I don't hear so long. I hear salon.
Salon? Take me to the salon?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, like, that is a space there. But I can see why you would hear so long as well, because it's just, what, like, a half of a syllable more?
Could be.
Okay.
But yeah, we've, like Lindsay said, we have lots of recordings, lots of things that we've gone through. And these were the ones where I felt like it was pretty specific to what we asked or easiest to understand. We have lots and lots of other ones. We may put them on social media eventually from this night, but we didn't really record too much more after this one because then we were all just kind of present talking about it. But we did jot down our thoughts and feelings on the next few places.
Yeah, we definitely talked about, like, in our next endeavors, like, how we might up things tech-wise for recording so that we can have recording without it feeling intrusive. And how we can perhaps like record ourselves a bit better, because that was one of the challenges. Was we could have, typically we're all not sitting like within like 1 foot of each other, right? We're kind of sitting around a situation, and you're not sitting so close to the spirit box because it's very loud. And sensory wise, I was like, I'm overwhelmed. When you kind of have like a ghosty feeling, that's already unusual. For me, it was, right? I mean, like, I have Mars that lives in my house, but like, I'm used to that ghost, you know?
Yeah.
But sensory wise, I was like, every time it was like going because it's so loud. But I think that in the future, we'll probably figure out a tech way to record things so that it doesn't feel intrusive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a lot to take in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were checking out the next day, we spoke to another employee. Her name was Chanel, and she told her story to us too. So we're talking about her story now because it has to do with the tavern. So we have more. Don't worry. There's plenty more, but we're still talking about the tavern. So she said she was working and she was called to go to the tavern to help with something. And it was summer, so it was like relatively warm, like not hot in there, but definitely not cool. And while she was up there, she felt a very cold gust that made her so scared that she left immediately, and she wouldn't even go back in that night. She was like, someone else can lock up or do whatever else that needs to get done up there. It's not me. And like, I love that for her. You're uncomfortable? Fuck no. Like, absolutely not.
Yeah, I think she used some probably like hotel lingo, like either she was helping with like a check or doing something up there. And then she was like,
Yes.
If you need help, you can come to me because
yes.
It's too scary. And I was like, I get it, because
Yeah.
that area is very uneasy feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But she was also very kind to like chat with us for a few minutes.
Everybody who worked there was so incredibly kind. It was a good hotel stay.
It really was. Yeah. So the next place that we journeyed to was another ballroom, and we were calling this one ballroom number 2. And I will say this one didn't feel as creepy as the last one. My initial feelings that Lindsay had jotted down was that it felt still. And then I also felt like it was kind of exciting, but like the feeling of anticipation, like something exciting's going to happen next. And not necessarily like I was excited for something, but like just the energy in there was kind of an excited feeling.
I loved that room. That was like where the good stuff happened. It was calm. It was fine. It was peaceful. Like, I feel like people would go in there and just enjoy themselves way back when. Nothing creepy, nothing eerie in this room. I loved it. I could stay in that room. That one was so nice.
I felt the complete opposite of this when we first walked in. I had an immediate hell fucking no in my gut. I do not know why. It was temporary though. So like I felt that. I walked out for a second because it was like an instinctual thing to just like, hell no, leave. And so I walked out, and after a second I came back in, and I've been trying to be a bit better after this whole experience with trusting my tuition and trusting my gut. But like, that wasn't something I was probably present enough to think of then. I was just more like, hell no. Okay. Like, we're doing this. I have to go back in. But when I did, I felt fine, which was very interesting. I just did feel very watched in that room. And where we set up was in like the back corner. So like, if you were looking at somebody, you would be visible because it was just a big rectangular room again.
Yeah.
Also, just a thing I wanted to note is that before we went on this trip, Amanda spoke to one of her relatives about ghosty things. And they talked about water and ghosts. And if you leave water in a space, what it might look like if there is some type of entity there. Will you explain that, Amanda, very briefly?
Yeah. So,
or not briefly. It's our podcast.
We'll talk about it more for the Villisca episode because the conversation was geared towards Villisca. So I was speaking with one of my husband's relatives who is a medium. And when it comes to mediums, I'm always very skeptical. They have to prove to me, I guess, before I like trust at all. And he has on a number of times said things that there's no way he could have known. He's come to visit my house before and he said things about the house where I'm like, how would he know that? There's no way, because he doesn't live here. He lives in Iowa, so he's not here very often. But anyways, so we spoke a little bit about Villisca, and he had mentioned that a tool that we could use that was very easy is to bring a water bottle into the home and to not drink it. It's not for drinking, but it's a neutral ground. So when there's different various energies, whether it be good or bad energy, it goes towards the neutral ground, and the water could be neutral. And so I thought that that was very interesting. He also mentioned that if, let's say, there is something bad that was attracted to the water, that you would see the bubbles in the water, because typically water doesn't have bubbles.
Yeah.
But you would see it almost like it was a Sprite, like lots of bubbles coming through.
And one of the things that I noticed when we were in ballroom number 2 was on the far end, which was the furthest from where we were, there was like a mantle, and there was like these beautiful big like vases that had water and a floating candle in them. And nearly all of them had water with lots of bubbles in it. And it was just water inside, because perhaps we shouldn't have, but we did dip. I dipped my fingers inside and was like smelling it. And like, I think I may have tasted it as well. Be like, is this water?
Like
is it something else? I'm like, ooh, gasoline. Not that gasoline's clear, but like, I'm like, let's taste it. Maybe this is pure rubbing alcohol. Hopefully you wouldn't be putting candles on top of pure rubbing alcohol. That seems like a bad idea. But confirmed water with several senses is what I'm saying.
Remember when I said don't drink the water?
Like carbonated. And I'm like, ooh, dippy. Like sticking my finger in it, smelling it, putting it in my mouth. I'm like, I need to know if this is ghost water or not. Weren't they like all carbonated?
I do remember that.
Yeah, I think I have a little like video where I have a flashlight and I'm taking pictures of it.
I think so too, because I do remember you saying like, oh my gosh, look at these candles and look at this water. You said something along the lines of looking at the water, and we all went to look at it. And yeah, they were all bubbly.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. So interesting feelings in that room then. If I remember right, both of you also felt chills.
Yes, we did. And it was 68 to 69 degrees in there per the EMF reader. Just in case you were wondering. The randomest fucking notes I've taken in my little notebook.
I mean, I'm also cold 24/7. I feel like I'm always cold. So I'm probably not the best source to be like, oh, that was a cold spot. Like, I'm cold right now. Like, you're just sitting here in my house. I'm freezing. But I do remember that it was chilly in that room compared to the one that we had just walked out from.
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't have this next part recorded, but immediately when we set up the spirit box, it said, hi. But like with that emphasis, right? Hi.
Oh, yeah. It was like, hi. Like, it was like excited. Like, hi.
Super cute. Like, they were so happy that we were in there, like, hi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, new friend.
Right? This was our friend. We asked who we were talking to, and it responded pretty quick, Lewis. And then when we said, did you say Lewis? It replied, yeah. And then I want to say it said hi again, like in the same.
It did.
So it said hi again, but it was like after a few minutes, we were like asking it questions and we had paused and we weren't interacting with it. And it was very similar to in the beginning where we were like just trying to like get ourselves in order. And it went, hi. Like it was like trying to get our attention again because we weren't like actively doing something.
Like, I'm still here.
And so like, I mean, it was like maybe a minute or two. To me, it had like a childlike vibe kind of to it. Like, hi.
Yeah.
Like, notice me.
100%. Like, instead of tugging at your skirt, like, it's like, hi.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the way that it said it. And it was the same twice. The same high.
Oh, yeah. Same cadence, same pitch. Exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. And we did ask if it could like interact with any of our tools. So we are like, can you move the cat ball? And it said I can't. And it made us really sad. We asked if it could touch the EMF reader because it has a light. So we're like, can you touch the green light? And I believe it said it could, but nothing ever went off on the EMF reader.
So at one point we said, should we go to the pool? We asked it and it responded no. And then we asked it again and it said no again.
I don't think it wanted us to leave.
I don't know. But we asked where and it said, I heard it say outside. And I want to think that we all heard it because typically if in my notes, if I was the only person that heard something, I would say I heard, to be clear, like it was like not a universal thing. And then we heard help us, please. And that was the one that really changed the tone. It didn't sound like angry or anything. It sounded just kind of sad. And we were like, how can we help? And then that's when it started getting quiet. And like, we didn't really hear much else. And then we said, how many people are here with us? There was no answer. We said, can you say one of our names? And then Amanda went around and said each of our names. And then there was no response. And so Amanda said, can you name something in this room? Because the way it was set up, there was like a photo backdrop. There was that mantle that had lots of candles. There was several speakers that were like across the room. There was like chairs lined up. I think there was a podium and there were like some high standing tables. So there was lots in there that could have been like chair.
Yeah.
You know, like anything like that. And then there was no answer to that. And then the last thing that was asked was, any last things you want to say? And then we didn't hear anything else. So it was pretty much like after we heard help us, please, we didn't hear anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it went quiet.
And because it suggested that we go outside, that is where we went next. So we went outside. Jess took us out there, which was helpful because it's a big property, bigger than you probably first think when you get there. But so she took us outside. It was a bit chilly. So like we got hoodies and stuff before we went out. We were walking to the gazebo, which when you go out back, there's an outdoor pool area and like there's a path that runs parallel to it. And then up behind it is a very large gazebo, which frankly looks like the one from Twilight. Like I was like,
where is Bella and Edward?
Is Bella in a boot, like dancing awkwardly at a quote unquote prom? It did look like that. But when we were walking up, we thought that there was someone in there because we saw something like shuffle in the dark. We thought like, oh, perhaps it's a raccoon. We'll go see a raccoon. But then we're like walking and we're like, it's probably a person though, because it was large enough to be a person.
Yeah.
And then when we got there, there was no one in the gazebo. There was no one around the gazebo. And there were no sounds of life existing near it. Didn't like that.
Very weird because we saw it and we were like, oh, there's something there. And we got very excited because we're like, Jess, is there raccoons out there? And then we're like, oh, there's like a lot of people. Like there's a lot of people at the pool earlier. I'm sure that like two of them snuck away over here and we're interrupting something.
And that's perverts.
No, nothing.
Nothing. Not at all.
I also want to remember that she said there was baby raccoons out there at one point. So we were like, baby raccoon, let's fucking go.
We were ready to adopt.
Because like part of the trip was we will sell. So after we went to the gazebo where there were no raccoons, sadly, we went to the lap pool and we got there around 12:42 in the morning. And it's important to just explain like just how bizarre of a lap pool it is. Because when you think lap pool, you normally think like very long. And that is not what this was. It was like half as long as a lap pool normally is, but it was a big oval. So you swam around in a circle. And then in the center, there were like columns and chairs. So it was neat, but it was just a very different than what I would expect when you say like hotel pool. And so in the episode that we did about the Elms originally, we talked about how someone was shot and killed. And this is the area where that happened because I believe this is where Al Capone had his like gambling and parties. So
it was a speakeasy.
Yeah. So what was your impression when you were down there, Amanda?
I was just fascinated by like the pool itself. I'd never seen a pool like that before. But I think the most interesting part for me was that we were told that while Capone was down there, he had a secret tunnel to evade the police, and it might have been connected to that room. We heard a few theories from people of where they thought it might have been, but I just thought that was fascinating that, he could have just scurried off in some weird tunnel to not get caught, and it was like connected to that room at one time.
Yeah, I did think that was neat. And also, I want to think that they said that maybe one of the very big pillars upstairs may have been put over the column because there's kind of like a depression in the tile where you can see where
over the tunnel,
there's something going on. It's structurally fine, but you could see that perhaps it's over the tunnel. Yeah, which I thought was interesting. Nora, what was your impression of the lap pool?
Very interesting lap pool. I would have liked to go in it. But, I didn't wear my swimsuit. But my favorite part about that room was that little corner where it had the exposed...
It was a spring.
What was it? Like an exposed pipe or something? Or...
spring water.
Yeah, the exposed spring. The spring water. Yes, the healing waters. And you could go there and you could see the water coming through. You could touch it. That was really neat. That was my favorite part of that room. But that's also, I don't know if you guys remember, that's also where they said that they would find, or that they would notice the most activity was in that one corner where one of those lounge chairs were.
Yes. And from our last episode, we had mentioned that someone was shot in the corner of the room. So I wonder if that was the corner.
I had also completely forgotten that. My initial impression when we went in there was, again, it was like a situation where there was so much sensory information coming at me. It was like a relatively humid room and the rest of the hotel was cool. So it was warm and humid. And then it's a pool, surprise, surprise, a very intense chlorine smell, which I enjoy, but it was more than I think I had expected. And then it was very bright. And so very bright chlorine smell, the sound of very loud music as well. So I felt a little bit of overwhelmed with it. And so I had completely forgotten about where the person was shot in the room. And we were sitting on lounge chairs near the corner, near the little spring. We have some EMF readers up. We're trying to talk to things and there's really not any activity that's happening. And so I'm sitting, Nora, I believe, was closest to the spring, then it was Amanda, then it was me. And I think that Jess was standing near us. And I was sitting with my feet facing another lounge chair. So my toes were kind of up underneath. And I felt something touching my toes and there was nothing there. And that was very unnerving because I don't ever want anything to touch my tootsies. Hard fucking no. And I was just I was what if I just sat crisscross applesauce instead? But I think that's the only thing that we really experienced down there. And there wasn't anything that would have done that.
Yeah, the only thing we took out was the EMF readers, but we didn't take out everything just because it was so bright too.
It was also too loud for the spirit box. There was very loud music that couldn't be turned down.
Yeah, so that was kind of our experience being able to wander alone. But while we were there, another thing that we were able to hear about is Jess's encounters while working at the hotel. And I absolutely loved her stories.
I did too.
My favorite one was when she was saying that she was working one evening and it was storming outside. So think of that, the best setting for a ghost story, right? And she was doing her walks before getting off. And what it sounded like is she would walk each floor and finish up, tasks, maybe delivering things to rooms, working, right? And one of the floors, to give everyone a picture of how it works, is on the 5th floor. As a guest, you cannot access that floor unless you have the key card for that floor. So you could take the elevator or the stairs, but it will not take you there unless you have that key card, because between even the stairs, there's a door that you have to get through. Now, employees also have a service elevator up to that floor that they generally use. Well, from what Jess told us, she usually used the service elevator, but for that particular night, she ended up taking the stairs up to the 5th floor.
What I think is really interesting is that she didn't have a reason for that.
Right. She's just I happened to do it.
Something in her, just something, she was just I'm going to take the stairs, which could you imagine you've worked your entire shift, you've been on your feet and you're you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to walk up to the 5th fucking floor. Seems just kind of abnormal to me in and of itself. And I thought that was interesting. Also, am I going to paint the picture? Fuck yeah, I am. It's a suspiciously wooden room. There's wood paneling on all of the fucking walls. It was just a suspiciously wooden room. That's all I just needed everyone to know.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. They should know that. Well, Jess that night took the stairs instead of her typical service elevator. When she got to the 5th floor, she noticed the lights were out, and she noticed that the furniture had been moved. To address the lights, she and some of the other employees started working on the breakers first, thinking that maybe something tripped it or whatever, and that didn't help. So when they went to look closely at what was happening, it looked like someone had actually unscrewed every light bulb on that floor.
That's a lot of fucking work.
Which is very unsettling. It is. It is.
I was going to say, that's a lot of light bulbs, especially in the small amount of time that she left and came back. There was no way that somebody was able to go and unscrew every single light bulb in time for when she got back.
I just feel like that is a task that like is not a necessary prank, right? Like you could do like if you were trying to freak someone out, you could accomplish that in other more efficient ways. And if you wanted to just turn the lights off, you would turn the breaker off, right? Like if you're like, I want it to be dark and spooky and you can't turn the light on, then you just flip the breaker.
Right.
Because it's not like other people could have gotten there. So like if you were thinking, oh, it's somebody pulling a prank, I would assume it was somebody who worked there because nobody else had access, right? So like they could have just flipped the breaker, but that clearly wasn't the case. And again, this was way too much to be a prank, in my opinion.
Right. And from what she told us, there was only one woman staying on that floor at that time. So no one else was there. It was just one woman alone. And she's like, there's no way someone, especially a small woman, could do all of this in the time it took me to be up there again, because it wasn't her first time up there for the night. Like she's doing her rounds. She's doing things all night.
These were tall ceilings. Am I right, Lindsay? Didn't she say that like even her with a chair, she couldn't reach that light bulb?
Yes, she was like, that was one of the first things that she said was like, even if she wanted to, the person who like was staying on that floor couldn't have gotten there. And that I want to think that she said that she had to have somebody else come and like screw them back in because she couldn't reach them.
Right, right. And so remember, I said the furniture was moved. And so I want to talk about the furniture because this is what freaks me out the most. Most of it was stacked and balanced on one another.
Straight Tetris.
And items were turned around and upside down. So like the framed art was turned upside down. There was very heavy tables. I want to say it was like a marble top table because we have a picture of it that's turned around. Lamps were upside down. And for some of this furniture, it was so heavy that there's no way one person could do that. I know she had mentioned that the table was like super heavy, the marble top, and it took multiple people to put it back to where it should have been. And so like, again, one person couldn't have done that. And like all the employees were working too. There's not like a giant crew at night from my understanding. It sounds like she was doing her rounds. Someone was probably at the front desk. Like there wasn't a ton of people that could have done this to like scare her.
I mean, we were there at night. How many workers did we see? I could count 3.
Right?
Yeah. There were very few. And just the way things were stacked was like very clearly like, you'd have to be really good at doing this if you wanted to do it. The way things were balanced were not like, oh, I'm trying to scare you, right? Like, because again, I mean, maybe you're like that committed to your bit and like, congrats. I love that for you. But like the time and like the idea that some of these chairs are like leg to leg stacked.
It's scary. It's unsettling when you look at the pictures, and we'll share those. Jess gave us permission to share those.
Yeah.
I can't wait for them to see those pictures because they gave me goosebumps. Just looking at them was like, oh, it was uncomfortable to look at those pictures.
Right?
And like the one particular picture, which I think Amanda's about to mention, really, like when I saw it,
ominous.
No, because it was so purposeful.
Yes. So there's one picture that she took of a singular chair sitting in the middle of the hall facing the door that the service elevator would have opened to. And so it's just one chair, like someone was waiting for her to come up to do her rounds.
Because she should have gone through that door.
So had she taken the elevator, it would have opened up and there would have just been that one creepy chair just looking right at her.
Yeah.
And that was the one where I saw it and I was like, oh no. If you were looking at a photo of like just a chair in a room, it doesn't sound like a scary thing at all. But when you understand the context of it, you're like, oh no, like that's the way she should have come in.
Yeah, very unsettling. The one that really got me is the one I think you were kind of describing of the chairs stacked on one another, but like leg to leg. And I don't think I have the talent to stack chairs that way, or it would have taken me an incredibly long time to figure out how to do. let alone in a short amount of time.
I mean, it was like peg to peg on these chairs.
Mm-hmm.
So just like perfect puzzle piece.
Yeah, I could never.
My shaky hands could never.
When we're talking about the type of chair, by the way, they're like a heavier, nice wooden chair that has like a flat bottom. So there's not like a little like piece that would like help it not move or scratch floors. But it is like a precise thing that they were like on there just so, if you will. And in the time that it took to do that, I would have just like knocked it the fuck down.
Yeah, I would have made a big.
It would have come up to me being like, woo, and I would have had to be like, woo, I'm a ghost, right? Like it would have like, that's what would have been scary, was like how bad at it I was. It does make me want to try that with chairs though, the next time I see that kind of chair. So I'm going to be at like a restaurant. I'm like, hey, could I just borrow like 6 chairs really quick?
And stack them?
I need to see how long it would take. Yeah.
Can we go to the 5th floor and stack some things?
If we ever go back, we should try and recreate it.
Yeah.
Again, like only one person staying on that floor. There was no way she could have moved all of that, let alone unscrewed all of the light bulbs in the time between an employee walking that floor. So that's just insane. And when we talked about the Elms Hotel the first time, we talked about how multiple employees have had issues with the furniture being moved or things being turned upside down in rooms. For instance, like I want to say it was housekeepers went out to their cart to get something, and when they looked back in the room, things were changed. But anyways, so Jess also, outside of the story, told us that the spa at night is very creepy, especially when the lights are out, and that she has heard people talking down there when it's empty. Now, we didn't get a chance to do the spa this time, but hopefully when we go back, we can check that place out.
I feel like we'll be so much better prepared if we go back, because we've kind of like done it like the first round. I feel like we'll know exactly what we need for each one of the places we visited. We're going in guns hot.
Yeah. So we're finishing up our episode on the Elms Hotel. We just want to take a moment to say thank you to Jay, who hosted the ghost tour, for sharing his stories, for having his book that's accessible to everyone because everyone can go take a look at it, and for allowing us to explore the property, and also for hosting just a fucking awesome ghost tour. It was one of the best that I've ever been on. Also for Jess, who we doted on earlier, but also like we appreciated her showing us around, making sure we could get into spaces and just kind of staying around, because very fair that they wouldn't want us to be unaccompanied in dark places randomly. And then also for being comfortable sharing her stories with us and being vulnerable. And for Chanel, for her sharing her story with us. And also thank you to Robert, Amanda's husband's cousin-in-law, which it sounds very removed, but they chatted, they talked. He gave us really helpful tips for keeping ourselves safe on our spooky adventures. He suggested crystals that we should use, some things that we should do before and after leaving places. And it was just incredibly helpful and insightful.
Mm-hmm. Gave us a lot to think about too, to prepare.
Yes. And also to Nora, who was present. We loved having you on our adventure. Amazing. A treasure. Yeah. A delight.
She's going to be our travel companion when we do all of our spooky things now.
Yeah.
She doesn't really have a choice. She's just going now.
I'm excited. It was so much fun. So much fun.
It was one of the most enlightening like trips I've ever had in my life.
Same.
And I already believed in ghosts and stuff.
Impactful.
Yeah, it was impactful. I felt like I learned a lot about myself in it, which sounds really strange. But like I had like loose beliefs and I was like, I think I like vaguely believe in this. And I'm like, oh no, like I definitely have beliefs now, because like when you experience it and it's you, it's a lot different.
Firsthand. Yep.
Yeah. When we talk about our other 2 places, we're going to have a lot more hurdles that we jumped through in a sense for ourselves to like feel safe or be safe. There's a lot more.
Yeah. It was, I think, a bit more in that. And I think it was a lot more intense, but it's also like coming off of like, it's important to know that our stay at the Elms was the last night of sleep we had before we stayed, quote unquote, the night at Villisca.
Yeah.
And so this is what we were doing the night before we went to Malvern Manor and Villisca. So this is like a relatively short time turnaround, but we had this like, what I would say is relatively light experience in my like journaling grounding sense. Oh, ASMR like page flipping. Do you like that? Why did I say it that way? How fucking creepy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wrote how I was feeling that night because I just felt like I was like, I'm going to forget this. Like I'm going to remember like facts and things that happened, but not how I felt. But I wrote like, at the end of the day, I'm exhausted but joyous. I don't feel scared, just excited. and a little bit alarmed about tomorrow, given everything I've read and everything I know about Villisca. And so like, that's how I felt at that point. And I was like, I'm glad I wrote that, because otherwise I would have forgotten. But
That's so accurate.
like, what a time. We're so fucking excited to explore more places. We've already started talking about other places we might go. But if there's any spooky places that you are generally interested in us doing an episode on, we want to know. We also might visit there. We want to know everything everywhere, especially lesser known stuff. Like, is there a weird bookstore in your town where weird shit happens? I want to know about it. Is it a massive hotel? You fucking know we love a hotel, baby. You fucking know we do. Do we need to put other places on the map? Maybe we will.
Yeah, Malvern. Everyone knows Malvern now.
Send us those random spots.
Yeah, we want the random spots.
Also, I hope all of our patrons checked their mail recently. Every patron.
Oh, yeah. They did get a little spooky treat. I also did want to say one more thing, is that one of the things that I found that I absolutely loved is just how wonderful all of the spooky people at all of the spooky locations we went to were. Like, there were no assholes.
No.
There were just only people who were like, hello, let me tell you some things. And I love that.
I could have spent an entire day with each person we met, letting them tell me spooky things about their place.
Oh, yes. And some. I'm like, tell me about your life. Tell me about you. I also am the type of person that I'm like, hello, I'm Lindsay. Tell me your name. Now tell me your lore. Like, I want to know it fucking all. And so I just loved it. It was such a fun trip.
Yeah. So if you're ever in that area, we definitely recommend, as we talked about today, Elms Hotel. Definitely stop, meet everyone there, do the ghost tour, stay the night. It's a great place.
Absolutely. Nora, do you have any final words? As our first True Creeps guest, no fucking pressure. All the pressure.
No, that was awesome. I can't wait. And I hope that we can go to different places. And you know what? I would like to maybe have the next trip not feel so rushed. So like spend a whole day at one place,
Yeah.
a whole other day at another place.
Or take a break in between.
Yeah. That way we don't feel so overwhelmed. And then that way also our thoughts and ideas and everything don't start just like meshing and just turning into like this big like snowball of feelings.
Agreed.
Things we heard or things we saw. So yeah. The more we know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when we talk about Villisca at the end of that, because it's the last part of our trip, I want to talk about like how we've changed since. So it's like for a future episode, but I do think that learning about how do we cleanse our energy between places, extremely fucking important. And also staying safe while doing these things is a thing that like we had some like basic understanding of. But yeah, I do think that like giving ourselves space and time to process and digest would be really, really good in between. Because Amanda and I had already talked about that too, and how that would be just like, I think, vital in going in between things.
So now we're going to need like a week, guys.
Done. Yeah.
Done. Say less.
My day job is to fund my spooky life.
Seriously. Yeah. Can't wait till next year. And with that, thank you for joining us on our first spooky trip to the Elms Hotel.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks for creeping with us.
Thanks for listening. And as always, a special thank you to our patrons who support us via Patreon.
Please see the link in our show notes to learn more about how you, yes you, can begin to haunt the dump, guard vortexes, or even become a scorching Sasquatch.
Ooh. Also in our show notes, you can find the link to our website, more information on our sources, our social media handles, and our merch store.
We'd love for you to keep creeping with us. So if you like this episode, please subscribe, rate, review, and share the show with your fellow creeps and or ghosts.
I beg of you.
I feel like I should dance when I say that.
You should.
Who's my creep alter ego? Let's see. Thanks for creeping with us. No.
Okay. That's your alter ego.
That's going in our after the outro part, by the way.
It is.
Yeah,
for
that's
sure.
fucking part of it. When Nora and I were checking in, we did have one very important first impression, and it was that their Mother's Day brunch sounded like it was the best meal that anyone would ever have. Because we were so hungry, and the woman is talking to us, and we are staring at this menu
100%.
of just like, it's like drooling. It's like a full like, you know, like 8 by 11.5 paper. And I mean, I'm telling you, like 10-point font, and the whole thing is packed with what's there. And we're like, everything on there sounds amazing. Everything. So that was my impression, was that the food was probably going to be good. That was one of my first impressions.
The lady's like, have you guys signed up for the, and we're like, but have you seen that they're putting waffles?
That is
I'm
where
so
we're
sad
at.
I missed it.
I'm sorry. But we all missed the Mother's Day brunch. So it was just us like lusting after this brunch that we would never have. So honestly, it's probably for the best that you did miss it, because
We should have taken a picture.
I'm thinking about her in my head. And by her, I mean that brunch.
Every day, all day.
We should have taken a picture of the menu.
I didn't. I'm sure it's on the website, the internet somewhere. Amanda, you have to wait till you're very hungry before you like look at that list.
Well, okay. Well, to everyone that's near the Elms Hotel, I guess check out their Mother's Day brunch because it sounds life-changing.
See you there next year.
Right? I want to. Yeah.
And we're very happy to blah, 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 blah. Welcome, Nora. This is the True Creeps experience, is hearing us live make mistakes. The audio is called Weeping Woman. That's my podcast voice. That doesn't actually go on the podcast. Organ for a baby raccoon.
Yeah.
And I need you both to know that when we got back for my ring, I got like, someone posted like, if you see a raccoon with a pink collar, that's my pet raccoon. Please return it. And I was like, look, I'm not a person who would never not return someone's pet, but if ever I was tempted, a domesticated raccoon is where I would take it back. But I consider, like, I might spend an hour with it before, like, I send it back, just like to be like, hi, can I give you like raccoon for fucking hands? Like, is with you? Can like we be best? Can we go find an undomesticated raccoon so you can tell them about how good their life could be if they came with me, and then I'll take you home. I need your help to get my own raccoon. Anyway,
Quid pro quo.
yeah. Like, look, I'm helping you out. You help me out to get a raccoon in my house.
That's all we want.
It's all I fucking want. But also in the same vein, I want you to picture like you're sleeping and like you see like a little raccoon hand like just reach up the side of your bed. That would scare the fuck in the dark. Just a tiny little hand. It would look too doll-like.
I mean, if you knew it was there.
Might not.
I feel like I would sleep with my raccoon.
But they're nocturnal. They're awake during the night, aren't they?
Right against your face. I mean, cats are nocturnal, but I trained them to not be.
We would do the same with the raccoon.
Yeah. Moo has approached the podcast fort
I see her tail.
and alerted me that I don't need any more fucking animals. Right? Is that what you've come to tell me?
She's like, no raccoons, thank you.